Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing a Leetcode question 150, evaluate reverse Polish notation. So Polish notation, is actually a type of arithmetic notation, all right? So if I search this up, we'll kind of get like a sort of example of it. It kind of looks like this, all right? And so I'm going to explain what a Polish reverse notation is. You can see that there is a Wikipedia page for it, right? The one that I'm on to understand it better. And then once we understand that, we can go ahead and solve this problem. Okay. So I'm going to open up our whiteboard to go ahead and do this. And yeah. Okay, so with Polish notation, it looks something like this, okay? So pretend you have, let's say, this expression, 4 plus 5, right? Pretty easy. This is regular notation, right? Now in Polish, reverse Polish notation, I'm going to call it RPN for its initials. It would look like this, 4, 5 plus. So what this is saying essentially is these are our operators and this is our operand, right? So this is the operation that these two numbers will be operating on. So therefore, this plus sign will be applicable to these two numbers. And it looks like this in regular notation. So if we look back on our example in our examples here, you can see that in the input we get a list of tokens, and in this list you see somewhat of a notation like that, right? You can see it over here like this, right? So you see the 2, 1, and then the plus, right? So if I just go ahead and clear this out, it'd be 2, 1, and then plus. So you can see this is the exactly like the reverse Polish notation, right? And so in this case, these are our operators and this is our operand or the operation, right? So it's going to just be 2 plus 1, which equals, and then whatever, 3 in our case. In our case, in this case, right, with the RPN, it would just be like this, right? Okay, now that we understand this more clearly, let's go ahead and try out this problem. So in this problem, we're given tokens, all right? We can see that through this list. Now within these tokens, there are multiple of these RPN or reverse Polish notations that are seen, right? So you can see that we have our 2, our 1, then our plus. Then after that, we have a new notation starting with 3 and then multiply. All right. So essentially, what's happening here is we're gonna first have to compute this, right, which would give us 3. Because remember, 2, 1 plus. These are separate numbers, by the way. Are gonna is gonna be 2 plus 1, which equals 3, right? So therefore, we have that 3, and then that 3, right? That 3 is used for this next operation here. So you can see it's gonna be 3 and then multiplication, and therefore that in regular notation would just be 3 times 3. You can use this if you want, which equals 9. All right, cool. Now that we understand that, let's go ahead and try this problem out. So in this problem, we're going to be using the stack data structure. All right, and the reason why we're going to be using the stack data structure is because a stack data structure is really good for, I would say, record keeping. Whenever you want to keep record of something, and especially if you want to keep record of the most recent items. So essentially, how we're going to be using this is like this. All right, so pretend we have this input, right? So let's say tokens is um 2, and this is all strings, by the way. I'm just not gonna write this like this, right? I'm gonna skip over that, but they're all strings. 3 and then multiplied, right? So here are our tokens. So essentially, we're gonna have a stack. Now the stack is gonna start off with all zeros, because essentially what it's saying here, or sorry, not all zeros, my bad. Okay, so anyways, uh, sorry about that. So what we're gonna have is we're gonna have a stack. All right, so we're gonna have a stack. Now within this stack, what we're gonna do is we're gonna iterate over this tokens list one by one. Okay, so we're going to iterate, and when we iterate, we're going to get 2. Then we're going to get 1. Okay, so we're going to add this. We're going to push it into the stack, right? So some prerequisites required for this problem are to know the data structure of a stack and how it works. Okay, but now we have 2 and 1. And then once we see an operator, so an operator would be, I'm going to use a different color, plus, minus, um, divide or division, and then, and then multiplication. Okay. So here are the different operators that can be used. So now in our next iteration, in this iteration, we can see that it is part of this operator list because it is addition. So therefore, what we're going to do is we're going to take the recent items. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop. All right, we're going to pop essentially. And when we pop, it will give us the most recent item or the last item, and then it will delete it. So this will return, I'll use blue, this will return 1. Then we will do the same thing again for the next number, because all of these numbers are still part of the values. So we're going to do the same thing again, and then we're gonna pop, right? We will pop the number, and in this case, it's gonna return 2. So now the stack after this iteration, and these two are going to be in different variables, but after this, these two numbers will be operated based on the operator. In our case, it's addition, so they're going to be operated on addition. So it's just going to be 2 plus 1. Again, we get these from the pop method, and then that would give us 3, and then we add 3 to our stack. So after all of this has been completed, the last thing that will remain in our stack is the result of that RPN arithmetic notation, and that would just be 3. And then we repeat this process over by iterating to the next value, which is 3. So we would add 3 to the stack, and then again we're gonna have to use the multiplication. So then we do it's part of the operator, so then we have to do the pop method all over again, and it's gonna do the same thing of returning the most recent item or the last item within the stack and then deleting it. All right, so now that we have kind of visualized this, let's go ahead and translate my ideas into code. So first things first, I'm going to initialize a stack. There are specialized classes in other programming languages, but within Python, the common notation or the kind of common consensus, is to just use a list, but then use it in a way that you would use a stack, right? So through the methods of pop and push. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to say for each token within tokens. So these tokens would just be these singular entities. What we want to do is if this token is within the plus minus divided by. So if the tokens are within the operators, so I'll actually make this into a variable just for readability purposes. So operators, and then add that. So if tokens are in operators, what we're going to do is we're going to match the tokens, okay? So the case either, so this is when you have multiple different, it's basically like an if-else statement, but it's just much more easier and cleaner to read. So we're going to have case of plot. In this case, we have to do something, right? So right now I'm just going to do something, right? But obviously there's going to be things like logic in here, and that logic is going to be called computing. But first I just want to add these, and then I'll do that bit. Okay, so divide, and then multiply, and do something. Okay, so I'm going to keep that. Now what I'm going to do is within here, what we're going to do is we're going to get number 1. number 2 first, which is going to be the second number we're going to be adding. Because remember, in the Polish notation, you can only have, so I'm just going to have a little bit of a box here for myself. This is our RPN, and that's reverse Polish notation. Within a reverse Polish notation, you can only have two numbers. You can only have two numbers. You can't have three numbers. It only works with two numbers, as you can see here, right? It only works with two numbers. Okay? Or well, in this case, and in our case within the problem, we're assuming that. All right? See, the division between two always try and get to zero. So basically, it always works with two numbers. All right, in our case, so we can assume we can operate on the basis that there's only going to be two numbers, and therefore, number two is going to be stack dot top, and then number one will be stack dot top again. So what this is doing is basically it's first getting the second number first, right? Because the second number would be the most recent item added, right? So we're first popping that. Then that second number, we retrieve it. It's in number two, and then it's gone. So then now the first number that we have to add is the other number within the stack, so we can pop that as well, and then delete it from our stack. Okay, so now we can do something over here. All right. So I'm gonna keep this as result, and so what result's gonna be here is number one plus number two. Then here result's gonna be number one minus number two. So this way we keep the proper order of the numbers, right? So number one divided by number two. All right, the same thing here, but then it's for multiplication. So number one times number two. There we go. So now we have our computation and the result is there. So remember what we said we would do last? We would add this. So this is the push method here. We would push it. We'd push this this uh, this result into our stack. So for that, we'd use the append method, and then we would add the result. Right there we go. And so now that stack has our final appended result. And then at the end, what we want to do at the end of this for loop, we actually want to return stack 0. Now, stack 0 will get us the first element, and the reason why we want the first element is because at the end of this execution, right, after all of the tokens are dealt with, we will only, in the stack, we will only have the final result. Because every time we do these operations, these arithmetics, as you can see through here, we're adding that to the stack. So at the end, like at the final time that we have to run this execution, right, for the final time, what's going to happen is we're going to have our final result, which is going to have this in the stack. There's going to be that final result, and so therefore we're just retrieving that, because it would only be one entity, right? Because the result would only have one entity, so therefore we just are giving stack 0. So if we run this, oh, oops, sorry, one thing I forgot to do is, if this is not true, if this statement is not true, so if it's not true, so else, we need to append to the list the token itself. So that way we actually populate the stack with the tokens, so that we can actually work with the tokens themselves, right? Um, so let me run this now. And I just forgot, I just need to convert these into integers, because we are working with strings currently. And same thing with the final result. The final result should be an integer like this, because sometimes it could be a float value or string or anything. So we just want to make sure that it stays like that. There you go. You can see that everything is working properly. And if I press submit, perfect. You can see that I've solved the problem. No issues at all.